It's June 18th, and this is the morning commute of Mike and Bike. I'm listening to an episode of This American Life, and with the theme of the golden calf from the Bible, where the Israelites were worshiping fashioned an idol calf while Moses was on the mountain getting the commandments. They're just talking about things in life that people covet. And they just did a little story about a woman who had some pants, a pair of pants that she really liked, but it turns out that nobody else did. And everybody else thought she looked great in them. That's like one of those type of cringe stories where our perspective of things is so, and how we see ourselves is so radically different from how everybody else does. I know what happens. Yeah, I know there's been people who had views of myself that I couldn't understand. Like, thought I was out to get them or done mean things to them, when I'd been the furthest thing from my mind. So how these things happen, I don't know. It's a bit of a mystery. There's one case when I first moved to Germany, and I was doing computer programming at a consulting firm. We were writing a software for a fruit and vegetable wholesaler, and this consulting firm had a bunch of different projects they were doing for different clients, and they asked me which one I would be interested in, and I really wanted to learn German, so I said I wanted to work on there was only one project where the working language of the team was in German, and that was this fruit and vegetable wholesaling software. So I volunteered to work on that project with two other programmers. There were so many Brits and Americans working at this company that most of the working projects were the projects we were working on, everybody spoke English. So I worked on the team that spoke German and the least sexy software that was going on. But as a consequence, I never went to the customer's site. My German was pretty lousy, so I would just stay back at the office and work. And at the time, I had nothing much better to do with my life. I was 18, and in a place that didn't know anybody or anything. And I just worked 7 days a week, a huge amount of hours every day. And I worked so much that we actually I was able to help us finish the project in something like 3 months when it was supposed to take us 6 months to do. And I'd come to work every day, and I have my 2 colleagues there. And one of them's name was Christian, I remember. And one day I came to work, I think pretty much when the project was done, and Christian wasn't there anymore. And so I asked my other colleague, I said, hey, wo ist Christian? Where is he today? He said, well, he decided to get another job. Or to go somewhere else. I said, okay. And that was that. Later, weeks later, I think, I can't remember, it must have been weeks, I went out to lunch with one of the project managers at the firm, a lady who wore huge gobs of makeup. And she was telling me a little story about how every time when my colleagues had went to this fruit and vegetable wholesaler office with new versions of our software, that Christian would always blame every bug on the idiot Canadian programmer back in the office. And then when the project was done, he went to management and said that either they got rid of the idiot Canadian or he was going to go, or they'd have to get rid of him. And the manager of the company said, well, then goodbye. And so he left. I don't know whether they actually fired him or exactly what the detail was there, but the end result was that Christian left. And I was totally oblivious. I had no idea this guy had a hostility towards me. Just no idea. And I was certainly not trying to do anything to antagonize him. And I've seen this kind of thing happen a few times in my life. Every time it does, it's kind of a mystery to me. Like, what happened there? How did that happen? And how did these people interpret that I was out to get them or somehow had ill intent towards them? Because I didn't. Maybe I'm like lacking some kind of social understanding of social cues, or reading people properly, how their facial language or nonverbal language, I don't know. I do tend to have the view, though, that it's better to just stay out of politics, by which I mean interpersonal politics. And it's better just to assume everyone has good intent and work that way. I remember another case where I was working at a little startup in California called Nchip, and as the IT manager in the early 90s. And we had a project manager who was from Texas. And this guy, he had this really cool demeanor, but he had this bubbling temper just underneath. And hello.
Hi.
And he would get so angry when his computer or something, technology didn't work. And of course, as the IT guy for the company, I would always come to help him like I would anybody. And somehow we started having friction. And he would just get more and more hostile and angry as I would try to help him with things. And the best I could think is it might have something to do with my disposition. I just come to everything in a very positive attitude, say, okay, let's see what we can do here. Let's try and fix it. And I think that somehow grated on him that I wasn't angry myself that the computer wasn't working, and that I was like viewing it as a challenge and as something fun to try to fix and get working. And I could just see him seethe more and get angrier. And at some point, this hostility that he was showing when I was trying to help him that really was bothering me, bugging me. And so I started being even nicer, even cheerier. And this made him even angrier. So we got into this feedback loop where every time he had trouble, and I was trying to help him, he would start getting angry. I would get happier, and then he would get angrier, and I'd get happier still. This all culminated one day when this guy got so mad with me. I don't know what it was. I was helping him with something wasn't working on his computer. I can't remember what. He couldn't print. I can't recall at all what it was. And he got so angry, he stood up and was just screaming at me and shouting invectives. All manner of foul language was spewing out of his mouth. And he just lost it. And this was in a cubicle environment, and so everybody could see him. Him just shouting at me. And he ended up getting a dressing down by one of our VPs for his behavior, and he never blew up at me again. And soon thereafter, he wasn't working at the company anymore. I can't say for sure if his treatment of me had anything to do with his leaving. I don't know. That's another example of a case where somebody starts becoming angry with me for reasons I can't really understand or comprehend. It's illogical. I will say that it gave me a certain sense of power to know that I could tip this guy into that I could manipulate him in this way by being happier. I guess it was my way too, though, of keeping some sanity of things. I mean, what was I going to do? Start yelling at him for being angry at nothing? I use this technique quite a bit, actually, I think, not quite a bit, but I have used it in the past, even before that incident with the Texan. I remember when I was in junior high, it must have been like 9th or 10th grade, I was in gym class and we were playing a game of rugby, actual rugby, where you tackle people and have scrums and the whole 9 yards. And there was one kid in our class who was like a couple years older than everyone else. He'd been held back because he was doing terrible academically, and he was known as a stoner, where he hung out with a group of kids who wore heavy metal shirts and had long hair, and people just kind of thought they'd do drugs. But to be honest, I don't really know how much drugs the stoner crowd was doing or not. And this guy was a bully. He'd always make fun of me in gym class and other times. He'd call me fatso or fatty, I can't even remember, but always referring to my weight. And he was just always making fun of me. And I just, never reacted. Just walked by him, never did anything to respond to his taunts. So here we are playing rugby one day in gym class, and I can't remember the exact play that was going on, but I do know that this bully had the ball, and I was the only one between him and the goal of scoring. So he started running towards the goal, and I just decided I was going to tackle him. And the thing to remember is this guy was known as a bully and known as being mean, and people just left him alone. And playing rugby, people just kind of would stay away from him, so he could pretty much just go and score and everything, because people just knew he was mean. But I decided, nope, I'm just going to head towards him and tackle him. And I knew that this would have consequences, because he doesn't take these things, he doesn't take stuff like this as just part of the game. He would take it personal, like a personal offense. But I knew that. But I thought, hey, if I'm ever going to have it out with this kid, this is the place to do it. This was going through my mind at the time, so this was conscious. So I, put my head down and ran towards him and basically did a full tackle, clean tackle, nothing illegal at all. Knocked him down. And this is like the first time anyone in our gym class had ever tackled him. And this kid, he was just, there was just shock in his face. He could not believe that somebody else had dared to tackle him. And so he jumps up, and he's livid, just angry, totally red face. and he lunges at me and starts punching me. He's punching me on the field, on the rugby pitch. And I just kind of cuddle up a bit, protect my, put my head down. I'm standing at this point. I put my head down and covering my sides of I got my arms up in a protective way, and he's just punching, and almost immediately I hear the whistle from our teacher, and our teacher's running and shouting, and our teacher grabs this kid, yanks him away from me. He has to yank him away. The guy won't even stop just by being asked, and he ended up getting suspended out of this incident. And I can't remember if he kept going to the school or not, but I know he never bugged me again. I can't recall any more run-ins with him ever. So that was one of the only 2 times I've ever had a fight at school, if you could call that, or a fight period really, a physical altercation. If you could call that a fight. I wasn't fighting. But I had controlled the situation. I'd manipulated him into attacking me. Well, I knew he was going to attack, but in a time and place of my choosing where I knew that he would get in trouble for it. So that brings us to the end of another episode of Mike and Bike. I'll see you all next show.